Hello, citizens of YouTube. This is the Geeky Nerd here, and today we're going to be talking about the Vltor MUR, this one being the 1S variation upper receiver, and why I think it is the best upper receiver that no one ever talks about, and I don't ever see any type of reviews or talk or things about. So I may be showing my hand a bit. Hopefully, I'm still able to get them. They don't fly out of stock after this video, but yeah, just wanted to talk about it with you guys. Before I begin, though, I'd like to send a big thank you out to everyone who has liked, commented, and subscribed on the previous videos. I always appreciate it and always enjoy talking to you guys. But if you're new here to the channel, welcome. And if you enjoy this video, enjoy this type of content, please consider liking, commenting, and or subscribing. So with the PR out the way, let's get into it. So Vltor Weapon Systems, they make a lot of great stuff over there. And I don't see them get a lot of talk about on the internet. They seem to have a bunch of older legacy stuff. Obviously, technology has advanced from where they began, but they still make some rock solid items. One thing that they did was they developed or they worked on the A5 buffer system, which is essentially a rifle length system in an AR that allows a smoother shooting, potentially more reliable rifle, depending on how you look at it. Right, that was used by the U.S. Marines. They develop a grenade launcher, a 40 millimeter. Obviously, don't have one of those here, but they manufacture one of those for the Marines. So it seems like they're very kind of Marine dependent, but working a lot with the U.S. military. And their items are kind of sort of obscure, right? As some of the Gucci stuff has really taken over the market, as well as some of the other just palmetto states. Nothing wrong with palmetto state, and they seem to have fallen into a bit of obscurity, and their marketing obviously isn't helping as well, right? But for those that are in the know, right? And this upper is a shining example of it. So this again, Vltor, as you see here, there is a couple different variations here. This one being the 1S, deflector only, because I don't see the point for myself personally with a forward assist, and I really like the look of this one. But there is a few key features that set this upper apart. So stick around here. Just kind of taking it out the box. Yeah, very basic, right? Obviously, I have opened it, right? So get the box out the way over here. And for those of you guys that are in the wonder, be on the lookout because this is going to be used in a very special AR build that has a few design philosophies, which I'll go over. But taking the upper out, as you see here. So here's the upper receiver, right? An upper receiver is an upper receiver, an upper receiver, right? Except this one has a few things up its sleeves. So just looking at the outside, right, you can see very nice machined. Really no machine marks, very nicely finished, nice threads, nice little branding up there, very thick, and overall a very solid upper. So guys, with that just overview, we're gonna get into the very nitty gritty here. So it does have a polymer dust cover, as you see here. It says Vltor USA on there. This being not the slick side, right? Because a true slick side has no shell deflector, no forward assist. Being the kind of hybrid with just no forward assist. Some of the ones that just have no forward assist, they have like a little lip that just kind of kicks out the brass, but it isn't beefy, right? It's definitely cutting a bit on there, to where this is quite substantial, right? Now, one thing that is unique about this is it is pinned from the factory. So as they make these uppers, they have the forward assist and then the shell deflector only model, but it is a separate part. But again, it is beefy and it's just deflecting brass. But it should stand up to plenty of abuse, right? There is no T markings up top. It's the only thing I wish they would maybe have, right? But hey, nothing could be perfect. But in either case, still very nice. Now, one thing with this being that kind of strips somewhat slick side, I really don't like how some manufacturers, they mill out the center of your upper receiver. Shouldn't really cause any issues. I do have a few that have that, but I found the ones that don't have it hold things more securely, obviously, because there's more meat, there's more material, and I think the weight savings is somewhat negligible unless you're going for that ultra light build, which this does not. And again, I'll talk about that here in a second. But it does have US flag on the top, which is nice. And just looking very detailed on the inside, you can see there, very nicely machined. No burrs, no type of really machining marks, swirl marks, anything like that. Really getting into some of that detail, just kind of demonstrating. This upper receiver is obviously class 3 anodized, but they have what's called their gun coat finish on it. And from everything I've been able to discern, that's essentially Brownell's proprietary finish that can be, sprayed, applied on. I really like this finish. I actually have a handguard that's going with this, obviously, that I would like to see if I can get that gun coat as well and just apply it all. It's not your standard, just to where it's anodized, right? To where anodized kind of has, and actually here I have an upper to demonstrate, right? So your standard anodizing. This is my just old AR. It's somewhat kind of rough. Kind of hear it, right? Obviously, they're both very dry, right? But it can get small scuffs and scrapes, like just like a phosphate finish bulk carrier. To where this, it's a lot smoother. Obviously, it's hard to describe a feeling on camera, right? But it just feels a bit more smoother and feels like it has a little bit thicker thickness to it. But in either case, again, just looking at it, there's very fine details, seeing where anything may be kind of going awry, right? There is obviously just some little, I should say, residue after finish, what have you, on the inside there. At first, when I really looked into it, I was like, oh, what is that? It seems to just be just the finish as it's been applied since they got all the outside. The inside is just residual, but it doesn't affect anything, right? Because it still is anodized overall. Now, beyond the finish, which again I think is just a really nice standout feature, this upper receiver is reinforced in certain areas. So looking at the geometry of it, some of the slick sides, they just kind of go like a tube, which I'll show here in a second. But in the areas where it counts, in the areas where you are going to see more wear, and this is where the Vltor really shines, especially for the build that I'm doing with this, which is going to, well, here I will spoil it, since this is going to be just part of the whole series, right? And you'll see all the parts come together, and then the final show is a bulletproof tucked suppressor AR. So it's going to handle a lot of abuse. It's going to be obviously handling additional pressures from suppression, and I just want something that's going to last the test of time. Now, this being reinforced in those certain areas is obviously going to help that. Now, one thing with it being reinforced as well, this is a 70-75 upper. 70-75 is better than the 60-61 standard aluminum. Now, you will see some of the more budget-friendly options, the $30-$40 uppers, or just the upper receivers, they will be 60-61. That works perfectly fine. For longevity's sake, though, for accuracy's sake, for just general use of the gun in a long-term situation, 60-61 is obviously going to fare far less than the tensile strength of 70-75. This also being 70-75 as well, this is not a billet part. You would be surprised. You think, right, because a lot of these stripped or these very streamlined uppers, they are billet. Nothing wrong with billet as well. But inherently, by the nature, by the grain structure, by how billet parts and forged parts are made, forgings are always going to be stronger. Again, it's just the nature of it, right? Is it going to make a discernible difference? Not necessarily, but stacking tolerances here could potentially, and who's to say later down the road, right? Obviously, all manufacturers are going to have their different, but I'll get off that rant there for a second. Sorry, a little geeky nerd moment. But getting back to this upper here, you will see that it is reinforced in the area where your cam pin, right, for your bolt carrier, is basically unlocking, twisting, and coming back. On the edges, now everything is mil-spec because obviously it has to fit within mil-spec parts, but in the areas that aren't dictated by mil-spec, right? So mil-spec is just saying that, hey, these holes are this position, this width is this position, bolt carrier can fit in here. That's the common spec, right? This is here. But then everything outside of that is kind of free reign. And so it's reinforced on that edge, obviously as evidenced by the shell deflector being very reinforced. The top rail, while being standard mil-spec, right, you can feel that it is thicker. Looking at the barrel nut is, you can see it does just have ever so much reinforcement. That is really demonstrated by my Ruger AR-556 here. So just kind of doing this comparison, right? Trying to fit this in on camera, you can start to see where some of the differences shine. So you see, hey, it is, again, just putting this here, trying to give the apples to apples, right? You can see up where that cam pin is, that it has been extended out. It is It is more pronounced. Instead of it being a tube where just the bulk carrier is rotting in, right? You have extra material that hasn't been radiused off on here, right? Now you may not like this look, you may like this look, so there's a preference thing. You can see the extra machining, right, from here to here, where this is interfacing with your upper receiver, but again, certain mil-spec pieces like this here. So it still fits within spec, but definitely beefed up. You see here, there has been less scalloped off of this farther edge. Again, a little bit more just that robustness. One thing as well, you can see on this upper receiver here, this upper has been milled out on here, where on here it is just straight flush. So having a little bit more meat on the bones, not having that cut recess. Flipping them over here. Sorry guys, trying to make it work here on camera. Flipping that over, you can see again the the brass shell deflector is a little bit more beefed up. Obviously doesn't have a forward assist. The areas in the front a little bit more beefed up to where you see it isn't so necked down from where the barrel goes. And you may not think these little pieces add up, right? But they really do. And especially over time, it's going to present itself more of an issue, or it may never. One thing as well, this being thicker, it has more rigidity. So it is going to be able to potentially, I say potentially, because it does depend on the shooter, provide more accuracy. That more accuracy is inherent by the rigidity of the upper receiver, having more meat and materials on there. Now, switching gears, going to a billet upper. So that Ruger, the one I just showed in frame, the mil-spec standard, was forged, obviously, and just standard mil-spec. This one is a billet, and this one here has obviously had a lot more machining done, right? So with billet, you can get a little bit more finer details, a little bit more, I say niceties, right? But even for this being a Battle Arms development upper receiver, you can still see machining marks coming through, right? The finish is there, just standard anodizing, very nice anodizing, but not as nice as this gun coat. And certain areas like here, right, have been scalloped out, have been machined out, where they're left intact on here, again keeping that beefed up philosophy. The upper rail is still perfectly fine, but it is not milled out on there. So it kind of comes and it goes. One thing that I was talking about, right, is the milled out middle section. It's fine for this, for having dual cross bolts, but this is not the purpose of this rifle, is to be bulletproof, right? It's to be a little bit fancy. Looking on the other side, you see there, that's that shell deflector that I was saying, right? Perfectly fine, but scalloped out, not as robust. But again, I keep on harkening back to that where the barrel and barrel nut interface, you can see that it is quite substantially more built up than than on the Battle Arms development. Now, again, with this upper is perfectly fine, but Vltor just has those extra little niceties. And for the price, guys, of this, you're looking at around $125, $150 out there. They are kind of hard to find in stock when you can find them. For to maybe give another accolade to it, right? I know this is a very long video talking about an upper receiver, right? But every component in your gun should be well thought of, should be planned out, and should have a purpose for the overall build, because the weakest link is going to be the one that falls, right, in your gun. But another accolade for Vltor is forward design concepts, or forward control designs, with like little ducks and all those guys. This is one of their favorite brands as well, right? Just going off of somebody else's word outside of mine as well. And it like, again, it's something to be said about that. And the final trick up the sleeve of this, and if you stuck around this long, this is where you'll get the meat of the information. So appreciate you sticking around here. Vltor does one thing that I have not seen or read any other manufacturer doing, is that their uppers are cryogenically frozen, heated, stress relieved, which I know it sounds just kind of crazy. It just sounds weird, right, for an upper receiver. But what that does is, this being forged, like I said, or billet, what have you, is that going back to that grain structure and going back to the reliability, the durability, and potential accuracy increase from this, is that when a piece of metal has been created and forged, it's going through a lot of processes, going through a lot of chemical changes, a lot of physical changes in the metallurgy of the part. When it is cryogenically frozen and stress relieved is essentially to where instead of the grains potentially being brittle in certain areas over the course of the entire part, it allows the structure, the grain structure, the metallic grain structure inside to settle and, for lack of a better word, pardon me here, coagulate into a more homogeneous form, all together, and that inherently leads to a better quality part. You will see that like some barrels or things like that. Just, again, barrels are probably the one that people always get caught up on. Like Landtech, Landtech barrels are cryogenically frozen, stress relieved, and that is going to inherently produce a more longer lasting, more reliable, more durable rifle because it is in its natural resting state as it is. It's not fighting anything else other than just the heat and the pressure and what it's going through. And that is something that Vltor really kind of just blew me away about when I read about it, found out about it, contacted them, right? And just saying, hey, what's this all about? And that, I think, really goes to show that Vltor as a company is severely misrepresented in the gun community and really deserves a bit more praise. And if they're willing to do that for an upper, and their upper, right, I think that that design philosophy is going to inherently spread to the rest of its product line. And while this probably won't break your gun, this will not be the game-changing defining feature, right? But when you are building a gun, a rifle, AR, what have you, from scratch, it pays to pick out each individual part and be methodical about it, right? Don't get caught up on mixing your upper with your barrel and having all these matching, right? When you're building, you can really take the time to look at every part. And considering my geeky nerd OCD was flaring up when as evident by how long this video is, when I was researching uppers, this is the one I landed on because of all those features stated, because of how it is built, and because it offers everything I think an upper can and should be without missing anything further and without being a crazy Gucci price, without being overly complicated. It serves its purpose, it does it well, and the most important thing you want for any gun is for it to be reliable, and that's where I think the Vltor will shine. So with that very long video, guys, and my little bit of a love story for Vltor, I was not paid for this. This was all my own money, but I just want to get the word out there. Please don't buy out every single one of these uppers. I still have a few more I want to get, but by all means, please check out the Vltor Upper, Vltor as a company, and I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did. Really enjoyed talking to you guys. Please put it down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys have Vltor, if you guys like them, if you stuck around this long, you're a champ. And hope everyone's having a wonderful, awesome, fantastic day. And I'll catch you guys next time. See you guys.